Shabbat Shalom. I'm wishing everyone a joyous and meaningful and thoughtful Independence Day weekend. The Tony Award for Best Musical of 1969 was called 1776. Music and lyrics by Sherman Edwards, and a book by Peter Stone. The show is based on the events leading up to the signing of the Declaration of Independence, 249 years ago, telling the story of the valiant and indomitable efforts of John Adams to persuade his colleagues to vote for American independence and to sign the document. It's one of my most favorite shows. It's funny, thought-provoking, dark, and disturbing. One of my most favorite moments in it, and believe it or not, you can look up on the internet the 10 most touching moments in the musical 1776. Extraordinary what the internet will serve up. I didn't need that website, actually. I knew exactly what I was looking for, but I wanted to get the right words. There is a moment toward the very end of the show that, I will give a little disclaimer, very likely never happened, at least in the way it's depicted in the show, but it makes me cry every time for multiple reasons. Throughout the show, John and Abigail Adams engage in their very famous correspondence, from which the writers of the show took much inspiration. In the original show, there really only are two female parts, Abigail Adams and Mrs. Jefferson. But in the ongoing debate and negotiation for what the colonies, unfortunately, are going to need most in order to prevail against the British Army, most powerful in the world, they're going to need gunpowder. And Abby and John engage in a bargaining arrangement where she says, I'll work on finding you gunpowder if you work on sending the ladies pins. We have a terrible pin shortage and we cannot do the necessary work of patching and fixing and mending without pins. As the show comes to a close, there is a delivery that arrives at John Adams' home, where he is temporarily staying in Philadelphia. And she says, this shipment comes compliments of the Concord Ladies Coffee Club and the Sisterhood of the Toro Synagogue and the Friday Evening Baptist Sewing Circle and the Holy Christian Sisters of St. Clair. All for you, John. I am, as I ever was and ever shall be, yours, 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 yours. The barrels are wrapped in ribbons and bows, and John says, Abby, what's in these kegs? And she says, saltpeter, John. Though I've discovered it's probably quite apocryphal, and the writers of the show probably took a lot of dramatic license. For me, the inclusion of the sisterhood of the ladies of the Toro Synagogue gets me right here every time. You are probably familiar, my friends, with the Toro Synagogue, considered to be the oldest still standing synagogue in the United States. And this was the synagogue in Newport, Rhode Island, to whom George Washington sent a letter on the 18th of August in 1790, where he wrote, "Gentlemen, the citizens of the United States of America have a right to applaud themselves for having given to mankind examples of an enlarged and liberal policy, a policy worthy of imitation. All possess alike liberty of conscience and immunities of citizenship. It is now no more that toleration is spoken of as if it was by the indulgence of one class of people that another enjoyed the exercise of their inherent natural rights. For happily the government of the United States, which gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance, requires only that they who live under its protection should demean themselves as good citizens in giving it on all occasions their effectual support. It would be inconsistent with the frankness of my character not to avow that I am pleased with your favorable opinion of my administration and fervent wishes for my felicity. May the children of the stock of Abraham who dwell in this land continue to merit and enjoy the good will of the other inhabitants, while everyone shall sit in safety under his own vine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make him afraid. May the Father of all mercy scatter light and not darkness in our paths, and make us all in our several vocations useful here, and in his own due time and way, everlastingly happy." How people wrote and spoke not all that long ago. There are a lot of issues we can take with George Washington's words and deeds and life, as there is so much to uncover and bring to light in American history. I do not pretend, and none of you should, that we have a clean and blameless history. We do not. And on this Independence Day weekend, it is acceptable to be honest about our history. That Touro synagogue, a symbol of continual Jewish life in this country for a mere hundreds of years, appears in that precious moment in 1776. And I want to pull back the veil just a little bit on the person who is given those lines in that delightful, powerful, painful show. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Abigail Adams wrote this to her husband on March 31st, 1776. She wrote, "Dear John," and I skip a little, "I long to hear that you have declared an independency. And by the way, in the new code of laws, which I suppose it will be necessary for you to make, I desire you would remember the ladies and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of the husbands. Remember, all men would be tyrants if they could. If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we are determined to foment a rebellion and will not hold ourselves bound by any laws in which we have no voice or representation. That your sex are naturally tyrannical is a truth so thoroughly established as to admit of no dispute, but such of you as wish to be happy willingly give up the harsh title of master for the more tender and endearing one of friend. Why then not put it out of the power of the vicious and the lawless to use us with cruelty and indignity with impunity? Men of sense in all ages abhor those customs which treat us only as the vassals of your sex. Regard us then as beings placed by providence under your protection, and in imitation of the Supreme Being, make use of that power only for our happiness." And she and John would always sign their letters, from your beloved friend. Remember the ladies. This country would not be free without the efforts of the women. Society did not easily permit females to participate in the Revolutionary War, but in a lovely piece by Pamela Murrow, a researcher and scholar, we are told that women did great things by giving to their country in many ways. So their husbands did not have to manage homesteads. The ladies supported them by working farms, managing the frontier environment, and caring for the sick so their families could stay together while their husbands were fighting, creating, or rallying the nation. These patriots endured hardships only they could understand. John Adams wished to be a soldier and expressed his desire that everybody must and will and shall be a soldier, but was much more successful in Congress when his wife was running the farm. Women so often uprooted families to follow their husbands or left their children behind to be raised by friends and family, enduring the unwritten history of living life, day in and day out hardships of survival. The women and children that followed the camps, and there were many, endured the same living conditions and suffered the same privations as the soldiers in the army, which often included lack of food, clothing, and shelter. In 1775, along with Mercy Warren and the governor's wife, Hannah Winthrop, Abigail Adams was appointed by the Massachusetts Colony General Court to question fellow Massachusetts women who were charged by word or action of remaining loyal to the British Crown. John wrote to Abby, "You are now a politician and now elected into an important office." We know as the Second Continental Congress was formed and debated the Declaration of Independence, we have heard already from Abigail's argument in her letters to her husband that the creation of a new form of government was a chance to make the legal status of women equal to that of the men. Sorry, Abby, but thank you for trying. Remember the ladies. On this July 4th weekend, which happens to coincide with Parashat Chukat, I want to just take one more moment and remember a very important lady. In this Parsha, Miriam dies. As mentioned, there is no formal mourning for her. Immediately, the people are without water, and the rabbis for centuries and centuries have equated the lack of water with Miriam's passing. There was something, whether an actual well or simply that Miriam was a font of wisdom and caring and nourishment and sustenance, that though we hear so little about her story, clearly provided encouragement and fortification to the Jewish people while they were in the desert. With her passing, the people are bereft. They are without their source of song, their mother figure, the big sister of Moshe and Aaron, who would have been utterly lost without her. Much commentary has been offered that Moses' hitting of the rock was a response in his grief, and that his poor choice of words is not at all inconsistent with those who are in mourning, who often speak and emote in understandably unfiltered ways. We have remembered several extraordinary women from our Bima today, just by happenstance. Nina's mother, Andy's grandmother, Ellen's mother. These extraordinary ladies who often lived and loved and worked in ways that may not have been held up by the great standards of success that the husbands that Abigail refers to would have considered great. But we know how great they were. It is a privilege on this Independence Day weekend to do as Abigail Adams begged us all to do, to remember the ladies. May these towering examples of kindness and goodness and care light our path forward We need their inspirations at this difficult crossroad in our country's history. May we find our path to equality, independence, and true freedom. Shabbat Shalom.